It's my baby. It's my baby. It's funny because I remember the first shape. At that time I was working for another company, but the first shape that I decided to have, I did some drawings before, but I was in a hotel room and I had nothing to do than to take a soap and make a sculpture from the soap. After that, when I came back, I took a piece of paper, strong paper, I designed the watch, I cut, I glued to make the form, to make the shape, to calculate the exact ergonomy, etc., etc. And the third stage was, when I was young, I was doing model cars, aircrafts, etc., etc. So I bought a sheet of plastic that again I designed, I cut, and I glued, and this was my first prototype. Amazing. And this was the RM001. RM6 is my first contact with my friend Felipe Massa. And I remember when I put this watch, a tourbillon watch, on the wrist of Massa, everybody in the business told me, it cannot last more than 10 minutes on the wrist of a Formula One driver. It's impossible. Because at that time, if you remember, nobody wanted to play golf with a watch. Or to play tennis or whatsoever. So Formula One is a killer. To a watch with the G-forces, the shocks, vibrations, everything. So 2 seasons, and at the end of the first season, I remember we did a maintenance, the watch was perfect. I mean, it was a kind of baby of the RM6. It was a natural evolution of the RM6, and I love this piece because the material was so hard. When we first tried to drill the material, we found that the tool was going perfectly, but when we put out the machine, we noticed that it was the tool that was eroded because the material was totally intact. RM12, it was my first contact, as far as a brand, with the artistic world. I always loved to do a watch with a stronger artistic dimension, very clean, very pure, extremely sophisticated, etc., etc. It's a watch also that won a lot of prizes, and it was also it opened also a very new era. Yes. I love the RM17 because I always loved also the rectangular shape. And this watch is very, like the RM16, is a very chic watch. Very chic, very lifestyle, very pure, very nice shape, and beautiful movement. So it was a nightmare. First to convince Rafa, because Rafa loved the brand, but he always refused to wear any watch during his matches. You know, he's so maniac, everything, the bottles, this and that and that. And everybody told me it would be so challenging to make it wear a watch, he will never do it. And in fact, I remember when I arrived at the factory, saying to my team of engineers, saying, guys, we are going to develop a watch, we shall never achieve it. And in fact, it worked. And it was fantastic for the brand because, again, I love to do extreme watches to be put in extreme conditions, because it's not only the shocks, the G-forces, but you have everything. You have the sweat, you have the thermal shocks, you have G-forces every 3-4 seconds. I mean, it's never, the watch really has to be very, very, very resistant. RM55 is a baby. I wanted to have Baba Watson is in the family because everybody knows he's the longest strike. The only problem with my friend Baba is that he's reluctant to wear a new model because he's so happy with the first model that we did for him. He loves the model. Maybe it's a bit of fetishism, I don't know. He doesn't want to change the model, so I did a new model in carbon, this and that and that. No, he said, no, I love this model, let me keep this model, etc., etc. So it's very funny. When I was young, I was going to air shows, car shows, etc., and I always saw engines half transparent, where you could see inside, etc. And I say, my goodness, we have such a fantastic technique. The technique is so huge, so beautiful also, because everything is finished by hand. I mean, there is no angle that is not polished, there is no screw that hasn't been polished, etc. So we have to show that. I always wanted to do a transparent watch until we could see it worked. But it's so complex because I know some brands have been doing sapphire pieces, etc., etc. But I always love to see, because we know the technique, because it takes 3 months to do a sapphire watch. Only the case. It's a nightmare. And why? Because sapphire, today everybody knows to do sapphire. I mean, sapphire glass. It's just, it's easy to do. The problem with the Mille watch is that you never have the same radius. And when I saw some brands coming out with the sapphire watch, I imagine I wanted to see how it was possible, etc. But in fact, people, my people told me to do a simple glass of RM11 is more complex to do than the sapphire watch of the competition, because only the radius is pure headache. So we tried to do better than 3 months. We couldn't achieve that. It's 3 months only to do one case. I cannot do less than that. I don't like to cheat, so I prefer to have a hard time in developments, to have a hard time in manufacturing process, etc. It's not that I love difficulties, but I love to achieve what I want to achieve. Whatever the cost, whatever the time, whatever the pain, whatever, no problem, because at the end it makes, this brand today, I think, represents a new era in the luxury world and in the watch history. So there is a reason for that. There is no compromise.